Take your time, kiddo.
A weird FaceTime bug allowed callers to eavesdrop on people they were calling, whether or not the person on the other end picked up the FaceTime call. So for example, let's say I was trying to FaceTime my sister Mandy and she wasn't picking up. The whole time it was calling her, I could actually hear the audio on her end of the phone, which is so creepy and it's totally invasive of people's privacy. So people complained about that pretty much straight away, and they fixed the bug, so it's not happening anymore. Don't worry. But imagine if you were like talking bad about somebody and they started FaceTiming you and they could hear your bad conversation. That's why you don't talk about people. Okay, so this next FaceTime glitch also really happened. It's where FaceTime would be taking secret pictures of you without you knowing. So what was happening was, while somebody was FaceTiming somebody else, a picture of themselves would just show up on the screen frozen, and it would be a picture that they didn't remember taking. For example, this is what some guy commented online. He said, "Just minutes ago when I called my girlfriend, I saw a picture of myself from today when I was at the office. I know it was from today because I had on the exact same shirt. The weirdest thing is that the picture is not stored on my iPhone." So I don't know, it was like the iPhone was taking pictures of somebody without their permission and then showing it on the FaceTime app. It's all very confusing, but apparently they fixed the bug. This next thing I honestly find to be a little bit creepy. This is also true as well. They recently came out with FaceTime eye contact correction. So it's this setting on your FaceTime app. It adjusts your eyes so that it looks like you're making contact with the person that you're FaceTiming with. Because when you're FaceTiming somebody, you're looking at the screen and talking to them. You're not actually looking into the lens directly. So on their side of things, it doesn't look like you're looking directly at them. Does that make sense? So FaceTime came out with this eye correction that will fake your eyes and make it look like you're looking at the person. So it's like an eye warping feature that FaceTime will do to you. So let's say you're looking this way and not really paying attention to the person you're talking to. It'll fake your eyes to be looking at them. That's creepy. This next one is called the iPhone alarm glitch. When I first read this, it really freaked me out, and I'm gonna read it and then explain a bit more about it. So there was this girl who wrote an article online about her iPhone alarms acting very strangely. She would be going about her day, like going to work, going to family events, and an alarm would come up on her phone that she did not set herself. And the alarm would always have a message with it saying the most bizarre things that would relate to what she was doing at that time. For example, if she was sitting down at lunch eating her food, an alarm would suddenly pop up that would say, "Please finish your sandwich." Like it was an alarm that was always a demand, depending on what she was doing. Another one was when she got home from work, she suddenly got an alarm that said, "You better lock your doors," which is definitely unsettling, and she just had no memory of making these alarms. There was a really creepy one that she got at 3 a.m. exactly that went off and said, "You better hide." No, 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 no. So this post was obviously meant to be some sort of scary story or creepypasta. I highly doubt it was like a real thing. But after reading that, my alarm went off the next morning and I like jumped right out of my skin. I've actually had a weird alarm go off before at 3 a.m. I think that was about a year or two ago. It was quite a while ago. But I was sleeping peacefully and the alarm suddenly went off. I totally jumped and freaked out, and it was set at 3 a.m. and I definitely did not set that alarm. Unless I did it by accident somehow, I guess that's a possibility, but it hasn't happened since, so that's good. This next one is a Google Map glitch. So this glitch happened in Colorado specifically. There were 100 drivers heading to the Denver airport and suddenly there was a crash on the road. So usually if you're following Google Maps, it will send you on a detour. But the glitch was that the detour Google was sending these 100 cars was to nowhere. Something messed up on Google Maps and it led all of these people to a dead-end road in the middle of nowhere. It says that cars began sliding down the narrow dirt road, which had turned into a muddy mess. Some cars got stuck, causing another traffic jam, and the drivers found themselves in an empty field with no other route options because it was a dead-end road. How scary is that? People were missing their flights, people were enraged. Obviously, Google found out about this and they couldn't understand what went wrong because that road that led to nowhere wasn't even near the airport. It was like Google Maps just like took over by itself. But 100 cars went on this road to nowhere. The last two we're talking about are also Google Map glitches. So this next one was a glitch where Google Maps made everybody look like ghosts. Freaky! So there is a specific street in New York City, which I will show you, but if you go onto Google Maps, all of the cars, all of the people, all of the animals look see-through, like they look like ghosts. It says if you head to this Manhattan street, you'll find yourself staring at a near invisible US food service truck driving down the road. You'll also see a bunch of ghost people walking across the streets. Now, this definitely freaked people out when they first saw it, but there is kind of a rational explanation. People are saying that Google Maps probably accidentally put two images on top of each other, so it makes people and cars look transparent when they're actually obviously not. It was just a weird glitchy bug that happened, and there's so many of these all over Google Maps that I could talk about for like hours. But let's talk about the last one in today's video, and it's where there was a Google Maps glitch that showed part of a UFO, and people were really freaking out. It says a Google Maps user reported a mysterious UFO sighting in the skies above a Florida swamp. The strange object is a little bit blurred, and what's so creepy is that this spot is just outside of the Bermuda Triangle, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know about the Bermuda Triangle. Basically, it's an area where a lot of bad things have happened. Shipwrecks, deaths, horrible things in this triangle, so that is where the UFO was seen. It says even when zoomed in, it's hard to tell what exactly the object is, but yes, I could see how it does look like a UFO. It's multicolored, slightly ovular, but you can't see the entire shape. Now, someone did bring up that it could have been a butterfly that quickly flew by the camera, and maybe that's just the butterfly's wing. There are usually some rational explanations that you can think of, but it would be cool if it was UFO. Or would it be? I don't know. Do we really want aliens around here? I'm not really sure. This glitch is called the Black Mirror glitch. Now, most people are familiar about the show Black Mirror, right? Even if you haven't watched it, you've probably heard people raving about it. It came out in 2011, and each episode basically shows the consequences of new technology. The show is almost a warning of what could actually happen to us in the future, like robots turning evil, cameras being put in people's eyes, social media taking over the world, which it's kind of like our world now. But it was a very disturbing show. Like, after I watched each episode, I'm always left with this strange feeling. But there was this glitch on Netflix that really freaked people out, and apparently was completely unintentional by Netflix. So basically, people would be watching a completely different show or movie on Netflix. For example, Riverdale. Someone was watching an episode of Riverdale, and throughout the episode, this flash kept appearing on the screen. It would happen every few seconds. And the flash was so quick you could barely even notice it. But if you paused it at the exact right time, you could see that the flash was the logo for Black Mirror. I can actually put a little clip here of that happening to somebody. And people were really creeped out by this, especially because it was apparently unintentional. People thought, okay, is this like a weird type of advertising for their show? show? Is it supposed to be like subliminal messaging? Like, is it supposed to make us want to watch the show without us even realizing it? But it turns out it was just an accident. It was just a glitch on Netflix. But I feel like it was oddly appropriate that it was for the show Black Mirror, because that stuff happens there, you know? Alright, let's move on to the next very creepy thing, which is the Candle Cove mystery. Now, Candle Cove has been a subject of a creepypasta for many, many years. You guys may have heard of this before. Candle Cove was apparently this very unusual television show that a lot of people remember they watched when they were kids, but apparently it never existed. It's kind of like a Mandela effect, where 50% of people in the world remember Candle Cove being a real show, but if you look back in history, it was never a show that existed, but so many people remember it. It says the show is about a young girl named Janice who imagines herself to be friends with pirates, and the pirate characters are said to be portrayed by puppets. So it was apparently this creepy pirate puppet TV show. But a lot of people have recalled this show to be very disturbing and creepy. There was apparently a character in the show known as the Skin Taker. It was a skeleton pirate who wears clothing made out of children's skin. And there was apparently this one very disturbing episode where the Skin Taker was running after everybody and all the puppets were screaming and running around, but there are no external records of the show's existence. What's creepy though is that there are some parents out there who remember their kids watching this show, and all the parents say that whenever this show came on, it was just static on the screen, but the kids would sit there and watch the static. So it was like adults couldn't see what the episode was playing, but kids could. I don't know, the whole conspiracy is so creepy. You could make an entire video about Candle Cove, but the reason why it ties into this Netflix video is because not too long ago, a bunch of people claimed that for one day it was available on Netflix, and by the next day it was completely gone, which was very strange, and the people who watched it told their friends and family and no one believed them. But it's creepy how so many people came together and said, yes, it was literally just on Netflix. So let me know what you guys think about that. If you have anything else to add about Candle Cove, definitely comment it down below. I feel like I didn't delve in deep enough to really understand it, but if you want me to, I definitely could do more research about it. Okay, this next one is a Netflix creepypasta. It's called Never Share Your Netflix Password. It's about this girl who had to cancel her Netflix subscription because she couldn't afford it anymore. She went to work one day and a new employee was hired, and while she was in the staff room talking to this new employee, somehow Netflix was brought up and how she didn't have one anymore, and this new employee seemed really nice and told her that he would share his Netflix password with her so she would still be able to watch Netflix. So that night when she got off work, she logged into his Netflix, and when she entered the home page, there were no movies available except for one. It was under the continue watching section. Now, this movie had a very strange title. It was apparently called 1837491, and the thumbnail for this movie was just a black screen. So she clicked on the movie out of curiosity, and the only thing that played on the screen was this series of moving static. And in the background was this high-pitched noise that almost hurt her ears to listen to. And as much as this whole static movie creeped her out, she also seemed very drawn to it. And before she knew it, it was the next day. She didn't even remember falling asleep. She got up to get ready to work, and she noticed that she left her TV on. And on the screen it said, "Are you still watching?" I'm sure we're all familiar with that phrase. She looked at the time where the video was paused, and she had watched 10 hours of this random static. It totally creeped her out. She went to work to talk to this employee, but when she got there, her boss said this mysterious new employee had quit his job by the end of the day. And since that day, she never used anyone else's password ever again. I don't know if Netflix like made this creepypasta to encourage people to buy their own accounts. Imagine it's like all a conspiracy. Anyways though, that is pretty creepy. I don't know what it is about like static and creepypastas, but Seems very common. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is a very strange SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Now, there are rumors around that Netflix is going to be putting all of these SpongeBob seasons onto their platform very soon. Don't know if that's true or not, don't take my word for it. But because I recently heard this, I wanted to talk about a SpongeBob episode that really shocked people. There is an episode that came out called SpongeBob in RandoLand. It's where SpongeBob and Squidward head to a sort of bizarre neighborhood where everything is supremely off. So it's kind of like an alternate dimension where everything is very strange. They're on a quest to deliver a customer's order, and they both encounter a bunch of very weird sights, including a series of doors with strange versions of themselves on the other side. So when they open a door, they see themselves portrayed in a different way. It's actually quite a deep episode. Now, a few years ago, there was this very creepy meme of Squidward that came out across the internet. This is what he looks like in a meme, and the whole story was that that was like a lost episode of SpongeBob that was very dark and depressing. I actually can't even talk about what happens in that episode because YouTube guidelines, but it was a very creepy story about Squidward. Now, in this particular SpongeBob episode that came out recently, when Squidward yanks open a particular door, the meme version of himself creepily appears, along with some very eerie TV static. In response, Squidward yells out, "This place is a nightmare." So people couldn't believe that the SpongeBob team actually put scary Squidward the meme into the actual show. And I think they actually had to take that part out of the episode because so many people were disturbed and upset by it. So I'm wondering which version they're gonna put onto Netflix. I have gotten my fair share of really scary Instagram DMs. Things like, "I see you, I know where you live, I'm looking at you through your window." And I ignore like 99% of them because they're probably fake and seeking attention. But there was this time that someone actually took a picture of my house and sent it to me with the caption, "I found you." And that was probably one of the scarier Instagram DMs that I've gotten before. So with that, let's jump right in and talk about the creepy stuff on this platform. The first thing is a viral copy and paste story that was going around Instagram and freaking a lot of people out. People were putting a specific quote underneath all of their Instagram pictures that said, "I am Teresa Fidalgo, and if you don't post this on 20 other photos, I will sleep beside you forever." Now, Teresa Fidalgo is said to be a ghost girl. The legend goes that there was a car full of friends driving into the mountains when they pick up a hitchhiker that was standing on the road going by the name of Teresa Fidalgo. So they're driving in this car with an unknown girl, and suddenly she points out the window and says, "That's my grave over there." So they realize that she's just a spirit and they end up crashing their car. So people on Instagram have been told that they have to repost this story or she's gonna come into your bedroom at night and sleep beside you for the rest of your life. So this was going viral. Everyone was reposting this under their Instagram pictures. Obviously, it's fake and you should never believe copy and paste stories on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. If it's a copy and paste story, it's completely just gibberish. But the legend is still very creepy and I can see why it really spooked people on Instagram. Next, we have a creepypasta called Follow Me. It's about this 15-year-old girl who decided to create an Instagram account. She was super obsessed with getting followers, so she would browse through other users' accounts and she would leave comments on their pictures like, "Please follow me back, follow for follow." And I mean, that's a common thing that people do all the time. One day when she was looking for new followers, she came across this very strange profile. It was a man who took pictures of old creepy dolls and he never showed his face in any of his photos. So as usual, she commented on his picture and said, "Follow for follow." An hour later, this mysterious man followed her Instagram account and he commented on her most recent photo saying, "I am following you." And whenever she would post a new photo each day, every single day he would continue to comment, "I'm following you." She thought it was kind of weird, but she decided to just ignore it. She was just happier to have gained another follower. One night, night, when her parents were out of the house, a picture was sent to her through DMs. She opened the photo and realized it was a picture of herself sitting in bed. She heard footsteps approaching her bedroom and suddenly the dark, creepy voice saying,
"I'm following you."
And that's how the story ends. So basically it's meant to say that this man actually followed her in real life, which is super creepy. So hopefully no one takes "follow me back" literally. This next creepy thing is about a strange picture that somebody posted to Instagram. There was this guy who was completely flabbergasted and freaked out when his friend posted a picture of an old house that clearly has a ghost figure in the window. If you zoom up into the dark window, you can see the face getting closer and closer. It's super freaky to see. And what's even creepier is that the friend that posted this picture didn't even see the face in the window when they posted it. People have tried to debunk this photo with Photoshop, but no one has been able to yet, so who knows? Maybe this is actually real. And the last thing is about a very creepy Instagram glitch that people have been noticing and talking about. Of course, this is more of a creepypasta, but it's still kind of scary to hear. This creepypasta says that if you go onto Instagram at 3:47 a.m., every single person you look at will have black eyes in their photo. Apparently, this glitch only happens for a minute, so for literally 60 seconds, everyone's eyes on your Instagram feed will be completely black. Because this happens for such a short period of time at 3:47 in the morning, not a lot of people have seen this glitch. But those who have said it was pretty disturbing to see, especially when you're looking at your best friend smiling and she has like black eyes. Even if you go onto your own Instagram profile, all of your pictures will have that as well. They say that when this happens, you need to immediately log out of your Instagram until the sun comes up. If you don't, a black-eyed child may make their way into your house. It says if you log out successfully on time, you will be completely safe until the next day. So it's super creepy to think about, especially because I feel like I wake up in the middle of the night at random times and go on my phone. So if this ever happened to me, I would like throw my phone away and never use it again. So first, I'm gonna tell you a Skype creepypasta. This story is called Be Right Back. This is a story about a 17-year-old boy named Jake, and he was very lonely, didn't have very many friends in real life. He was just shy and didn't really feel comfortable going out of his way to talk to people, so he started to make friends on the internet. One day, he met this guy named Daniel, and they became very, very close friends. After talking for 6 months, they began to Skype almost every single day, and they would just have random conversations or play video games most of the time. But very strange things began to happen. One day, Daniel looked incredibly distraught when he joined the video call. And when Jake asked him what was wrong, he said that when he came home from school, the mirror in his bedroom was broken and the glass was all over his bedroom floor. And he had no idea how it happened. And the following week, things took a very, very dark turn. Daniel and Jake were having their usual Skype conversation when Daniel was suddenly called downstairs by his parents. So he said, "Be right back," and ran out of his room. So all Jake could see was his empty bedroom with band posters all over the wall and dirty laundry all over the floor. But suddenly he heard this strange rustling noise coming from somewhere in Daniel's room. At first, Jake thought that it must have been Daniel's dog somewhere that he couldn't see. But then he saw something that made his heart stop. A tall, pale, skinny man climbed out from under Daniel's bed. And Jake wondered how long he had been hiding there. Was he living in their house without them knowing? The man began to walk up to the laptop with a creepy grin and put a finger over his lips as if to tell Jake to stay quiet. Jake saw that in his other hand he was holding pieces of Daniel's broken mirror. That's when the call abruptly ended. And since that day he didn't hear anything from Daniel for 2 months straight. Well, one day as he was sitting in his room, Jake got an unexpected text from Daniel. And the text said, "Wow, Jake, what a beautiful neighborhood you live in." Then he got another one that said, "Your house is very nice too, Jake." Then another one, "Oh look, Your front door is unlocked. And then, what a cute little kitten you have, Jake. Coming up the stairs now. And lastly, what a nice room you have, Jake. And that's how the story ends. So obviously, whatever person or entity or thing that was under Daniel's bed has now come over to Jake's house to, I guess, capture him or whatever else. I thought that was pretty creepy. I mean, webcams and video chatting in general can be kind of scary, especially like when your friend leaves the room and you're like looking into their empty bedroom. There are a lot of creepypastas about that kind of thing. So since we've talked about Skype, let's now talk about Zoom. So Zoom was made back in 2011, but this must have been its most popular year, obviously with everyone staying home. And like I said before, I didn't even know Zoom existed until this past year. And now everyone uses it for meetings and school and talking with family. And I was able to find a couple creepy stories about it. But first, I want to mention this slightly creepy and funny thing that some people have been doing. So if you're using Zoom, you're actually able to put a custom background behind you. And people have been adding a pre-recorded video of themselves walking in on themselves zooming. So it's kind of creepy because the person you're talking to is just talking to you as normal, and then you see another them behind them walking around. So obviously it's a prank and it's a pretty genius one, but I can imagine everyone in that meeting would be super creeped out. All right, let's talk about a Zoom creepypasta, and this one sounds kind of real, to be honest. This one is called The Midnight Invite. Did that rhyme? There's a story about a girl who used Zoom almost every single day for her work meetings. But after about 3 months of her using this application, she started to get a mysterious Zoom invite to her email right at midnight. So exactly when her clock hit 12 on the dot, she would hear a notification pop up on her phone. It says it was always titled test-447-CU. And each day that she didn't join the meeting, the number in the title would go up by 1. And it says the email she received it from was called zoomtest-12@outlook.com. I'm pretty sure if it was a legit Zoom email, it would be at zoom.com maybe? She assumed it must have been some weird Zoom testing link that would test out her microphone and camera to make sure she was using the application correctly. But just in case, she did not want to click on the link because she did not want to get a virus on her brand new laptop. Well, after weeks of this happening, she noticed that on one particular night, the Zoom was titled something slightly different. This time it was titled test-472-CU-final try. And this time her curiosity got the best of her and she clicked on the link and joined the meeting. All she could see on the other end of the call was a black glitchy screen and the sound of static. She asked if someone was there and got no response. So she waited a few more moments and began to feel incredibly uncomfortable. And just as she was about to exit the Zoom call, she heard a voice.
We have you now.
The voice was deep and sounded distant and warped.
Test complete.
And then the Zoom call ended. The girl was so confused and scared and frantically uninstalled Zoom from her computer, and she was barely able to sleep that night. The days following, her computer wasn't working very well. It was slow, glitchy, and just seemed off. And after a week, she finally took it into a computer store to be fixed. She was told it would take a few hours, so in the meantime, she went off to do some grocery shopping. After only about 30 minutes into her shopping, she got a call from the computer store and they said,
Miss, we don't know how to tell you this, but someone has had access to your webcam for 6 days straight, and they're actually still watching. We're trying to get it fixed, but it's taking quite a while. They've done a pretty good job at taking over your entire life in your computer.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you don't click on sketchy email links. Especially if it's claiming to be like a specific large company. Don't click on it if you're unsure. Especially if you ever get like a Zoom invite or like some other video chatting invite from someone that you don't know. Don't risk it. But like I said, this does sound really real, right? I don't know if it is or not. And lastly, during my research, I found this creepy Zoom glitch. I was on this forum where someone was talking about how they were using Zoom, and after about 10 minutes, the application would constantly just shut down and restart. But just before it did, this creepy, glitchy, happy face would appear on the screen for half a second. And there were like 5 other comments on this specific post saying the same thing was happening to them. And I found it really odd because why a happy face and why was it shutting down? Was it some sort of like virus? I wasn't able to find any other information about it, so I'm thinking it could be fake or untrue. But how creepy would it be to be using like a video chatting service and suddenly you see this creepy happy face on your screen and then it shuts down? I don't know, guys, just be careful out there on the internet. It could be spooky, it can be strange. So the first glitch we're going to be talking about is the TikTok 3D brush filter. So this brush tool effect comes with several different options for you, but in the effect with the red and blue border, there are some really creepy images that are showing between the bands. The brush effect allows users to draw a 3D shape around them using AR. The effect adds a virtual 3D line that you draw with your finger on your phone screen. And like I said, there are several different effects to choose from, but the one we're going to be talking about today is the one with the red and blue border, because the other options on this specific filter doesn't have those creepy images in them. Now, a lot of people are saying that when you look between the two lines, you can see an abandoned building, and other people say that it looks like they're looking into a very dark and eerie room. So I'm going to show you some very strange examples. These are screenshots from actual TikToks that people have. Here's a screenshot from one video that has a girl looking at her driveway at night between the bands, almost like someone is stalking her. Another guy caught an image of what he thought were 3 people in a room. Others have seen a psychedelic painting on the wall. Other people have reported seeing dark tunnels between these bands. Another person saw someone crouched down in a corner with their hands over their face. Someone else saw someone wearing a plague mask in the photo. The whole thing about this TikTok filter is just very odd, and that's why so many people were freaking out about it and talking about it. Now, this was a big thing, I believe, back in September and October of 2020. So comment down below if you've ever tried this filter and tell me what you saw. I'm actually thinking of trying all these glitches and creepy things over on my vlog channel, so go subscribe there if you haven't, because we're gonna be testing. The next creepy thing is called the creepy translation glitch, and this is actually a very recent glitch. I believe it happened at the beginning of January. TikTok user @WoNelly recently discovered the scariest thing she's seen on TikTok and posted about it in a now viral video. So apparently if you type re in a comment on a TikTok video and then press translate your comment, it translates to very ominous and strange things. For example, someone typed re and it translated to, what is the purpose of life? What is this? The sound is the sound. The sound, it cries out. So it's so weird how just typing RI translates to something so ominous. Here's another example. Another comment translated to, what is the purpose of the resurrection? Crying? What do you think? Cry. The mourners mourn. And honestly, it is so creepy. Like, if that doesn't creep you out, I don't know what will. And what's strange is that it doesn't always translate to something really creepy. There was one that said snoring, or Rihanna is now Rihanna. So sometimes it does translate to very silly things, but why does it sometimes translate to something more? Some are seeing them as spooky hidden messages from another plane of existence, warning us about the end of the world. But the most logical explanation that people are saying it is that there's just some weird thing going on with TikTok's translation system. Like, it seems like it's trying to auto-detect languages and it's not doing very well. It's just messing up the sentences. But why is it so creepy? Some are theorizing that it's attempting to translate from Maori, one of the endangered languages that are spoken by the indigenous tribe who live in New Zealand. Here are some more examples of strange translations that people found. One said, it's just a matter of time. It cries, it stands, it's over. This is the next level. Another one is, this is the true story. Then we have, which is the most important thing? This is the next full day. This is the second full day. Where is it? Like, these are just so strange. Then we have, this is the second time. Crying? What is the true meaning of life? It's all about you. Then there's one that says, it cries out. Then the creepiest one, I think, is suffering. It's all right. And this is literally just being translated from a bunch of different RI. Now, I did go on my phone the other day to try this out for myself, and I don't have the translate button anymore. I don't know if they took it away because this was happening, or if my phone's just really weird, or if I don't know how to do it, but I don't see a translate button anymore when I try, so let me know if you still can do it. And lastly, we have a creepypasta glitch, or at least I hope it's a creepypasta. It's called the man with no face. There's a creepy rumor about a man with no face lurking on the TikTok app. He apparently shows up to people who have been scrolling on the app for hours and hours, which relatable honestly, but I haven't seen him yet. He apparently shows up up in this black and white filter, and he's just standing in an empty room looking at the camera, not really moving or saying anything. People have said that his account name is just a mishmash of different letters and numbers, and after they see his blank face, he invades their dreams after they fall asleep. Now, I haven't heard any reports of him doing anything bad, which I guess is good. He apparently is always just standing in the background of your dreams, if that makes any sense. So whatever you're dreaming, you will like see him standing on the side of the road or standing in a window or like something in the background of your dream. So it says the warning is, be careful how long you're scrolling on TikTok because the blank-faced man may appear to you. How has he not appeared to me yet? Because I'm on there for a while. Now, like I said, this is obviously a creepypasta, right? Unless someone has actually made an account with like a no-faced man. I feel like they're going to now that this creepypasta is out there. Before I get right into the glitches, I wanted to talk about something kind of creepy that I found out about Walt Disney. There were so many articles talking about how he actually haunts one of his old apartments in Disney World. He kept an apartment over the fire station on Main Street, where he and his family would stay to enjoy the park, or where Walt himself would go to get some work done. People would often see his light on in his bedroom, which meant that Walt Disney was usually working at his desk, and people would just know that he was there when he was alive. Now, after his death in 1966, the apartment remained empty, but employees still went in to dust it. So the rumor is that no one else is allowed to use that room except for Walt Disney himself, so after he passed away, no one goes in there except to clean it. One night, a woman went up to the apartment and did her usual cleaning routine. She shut off the desk lamp in the room and went downstairs. But as she walked out of the building and down the street, she looked back and the light was back on again. So thinking that maybe she just had forgotten to turn it off and thought she did, she went back up into the apartment, shut off the light again, and went back downstairs. But again, she looked back and the light was on. Thinking there was a short in the lamp, she went back into the apartment, unplugged the lamp, and left. And as she was walking down Main Street, what do you think happened? The light flickered back on. She also saw the drapes of the apartment pull back as if someone was standing there watching her. Many employees have also claimed to have heard a voice saying, "Don't forget me, I'm still here." So now they just keep that lamp on in that apartment all night long, all day long. They never turn it off. Just to remind people that Walt Disney is still there in spirit and still loves and watches over the park. So I think that's kind of sweet. I don't know, this story makes me kind of sad. It's almost like Walt is just trapped, just watching people have fun at Disney World in hopes they won't forget him. And let me just tell you, Walt will never forget you. All right, so let's talk about these Disney Plus glitches. Now, like I said, I love Disney Plus. This is not sponsored, by the way. I don't think they would sponsor a video of me like talking about creepy things on their app. My grandpa actually got Disney Plus for me and my sister for Christmas, I think 2 years ago now, so he like pays for the subscription. I love him. And whenever I'm craving a bit of nostalgia, I'll go on there and watch my favorite Disney movies from when I was a kid. Ty and I actually just recently binged all of the Star Wars movies over Christmas, and then the other day we watched the 2 Incredibles movies. I love those. Anyways, I stumbled across some pretty creepy glitches that people found while using this app, and they're a little bit out there. So prepare yourselves. This first one is called 12:15 a.m. There's a rumor that if you go onto Disney Plus late at night and search for the Frozen movie at exactly 12:15 a.m., for that minute only, apparently you'll see the ghostly image of Walt Disney's face appear on the screen. This apparently happens because he passed away on December 15th of 1966. So December is the 12th month, hence why it's at 12 o'clock, and 15 being the exact day that he passed. And everyone probably knows about that rumor that when he passed away, they froze his body. And that's why they say he appears over the Frozen movie on the app. I know it sounds crazy. I probably don't even have to tell you that obviously this glitch is not true. It's just a creepypasta that someone must have made up. Somehow people got the rather odd notion that Walt had himself frozen so that one day he could be brought back to life. Now, there's absolutely zero evidence to support this claim. Some Some fans also have this theory that the uber popular movie Frozen had an ulterior motive. And sure, Disney wanted it to become a box office hit, but the theory claims it served another purpose as well, which was to bury the ugly gossip of Walt Disney being frozen. People say that Disney always wants to protect its family-friendly brand. So a lot of their movies they take from the old, creepy, classic fairy tales like Pinocchio, Snow White, Cinderella, Little Mermaid. They all come from very evil, dark stories that they changed and made family-friendly, but they still kept the same name as those old fairy tales. Now, Frozen is actually based on a story by Hans Christian Andersen called The Snow Queen. So people wondered why they didn't just call the movie The Snow Queen. Many fans think Disney called the movie Frozen to divert attention from the Frozen rumor that had been circulating for decades by this point. So now when you Google search the words Frozen and Disney, all you get is page after page of Anna, Elsa, Olaf, and you no longer get the search results for that creepy rumor, because before the Frozen movie, that's all you would get. Even if it wasn't done intentionally, Disney successfully buried the speculation that had been swirling around Walt Disney's death. I'm actually glad they made the Frozen movie and called it Frozen, because I think that Frozen body rumor is ridiculous, and I'm glad it has been buried within the vaults of Google. Alright, the next Disney Plus glitch is called the Hidden Movie. Now, there are a lot of different rumors and creepypastas about hidden movies that appear on the app every so often. These are movies that people have never heard before, never seen before, movies that have such dark undertones that it definitely doesn't seem that it would be intentionally made by Disney. There was a story about these two girls who had the day off from school, so they decided to go on the app to watch a movie. Then they came across this random movie called Mickey's Endless Tunnel. So they clicked on it out of curiosity. It was a 13-minute short film showing Mickey standing at the opening of a huge dark tunnel. And then he looks directly at the camera as if to see the actual viewers. And he says,
"Come with me. Let's visit the endless."
And the camera begins to follow him into the dark tunnel. And the next 12 minutes is just Mickey walking in front of the camera, whistling this unknown song and stepping in puddles. You can even hear the sound of like water dripping in the tunnel and this subtle noise of eerie wind blowing through. The girls were so freaked out, their parents ran in, had to turn it off, and when they reset the app and opened it again, it wasn't there. So for those of you watching and you're like, Jessii, I have no idea what Wordle is. First of all, where have you been? Even if you don't play it, have you not heard of it before? But I don't judge, and I'm gonna explain to you what this game is. Wordle has captured the attention of millions across the globe, and I feel like everyone I know plays it. It's constantly showing up on my Twitter feed and my Facebook feed, because basically everybody wants to see each other's scores. And I feel like even if you've never played, you've probably seen those gray, yellow, and green squares somewhere on your social media. Wordle is a daily word game that you can find on the New York Times website. It's fun, simple, like a crossword, and it can only be played once a day. And every 24 hours there's a new word of the day, and it's up to you to figure out what it is. So you basically have 6 chances to guess the 5-letter word, and if you guess the right letter in the right spot, it turns green. A correct letter in the wrong spot will turn yellow, and a letter that isn't in the word at all will turn gray. Does that make sense? It was confusing for me at first too. Now, I only started playing about 4 weeks ago. I honestly held off for so long. Like, I was watching these like Wordle scores on my social media for probably 2 months. But then I started to get FOMO, and I kind of felt left out, and I was really curious to see what the hype was all about. So I tried it, and now I can't stop. It's actually quite scary. And I have this tradition of playing every night at midnight, because that's when a new Wordle game is launched, and I want to just play it right away because I'm crazy. And I've also never lost, and the best score that I've got was guessing the word on the 2nd try. If you play Wordle, comment down below what your best score was. Okay, so I was able to find a creepy story about a Wordle glitch, if you will. This story is called 3 a.m. Wordle, because yes, everything has to happen at 3 a.m. This is a story about a guy that started playing Wordle a couple months ago on a daily basis like most of us, bus, and he had this routine of waking up and going onto the website while he was eating his breakfast in the morning. Now, he did this for weeks and weeks, and it sort of just became his normal. Well, one day he was offered a new position at his work, but if he accepted it, it would involve drastically changing his hours. So instead of working 9 to 5 p.m., he would have to start work at 5 p.m. and end at 2 a.m. But because the pay was so much better, he accepted the offer. Because of his schedule change and sleep change, he began waking up in the afternoon, so his normal breakfast Wordle routine was kind of ruined. So he decided that when he got home from work around 3 a.m., he would play right before he went to sleep. Well, almost immediately, he noticed the winning words were a little bit strange and creepy. For example, the very first word when he played at 3 a.m. was dread. The second time he played, the word was caged. The third time he played, it was stuck. The fourth time, it was widow. The fifth time, it was being. The sixth time, it was ghost. And the seventh time, it was haunt. Those are a lot of scary words to get day after day. Usually Wordle is not that creepy. It actually has just random words that don't really emit any emotion. So after a week of getting all of these really strangely connected words, he decided to go to work and ask his co-workers what they thought. So the next day when he arrived, he asked around who played Wordle, and almost every single one of them raised their hand and said they did. And so casually he was like,
gosh, the words this past week have been pretty creepy, right?
But everyone just seemed really confused. And one of his co-workers said,
what's so scary about a beach?
So he found out that the group of them were getting completely different words than what his game was giving him. And he wondered if it was some kind of creepy glitch that only he was experiencing. That night when he finally got to bed at 3 a.m., he pulled out his phone but was too afraid to play the game. And he had this really strange feeling that someone was watching him in his room. So instead, he pulled up Google and tried to see if there was any odd history about his house. And sure enough, he found this old newspaper article that seemed to be from the 80s. And the hairs stood up on his arm when he saw a picture of his house on the very front of it. The article spoke about a woman who had recently lost her husband. And one night when she was walking home alone, she was kidnapped and she was taken to the house that he currently lived in and was kept in a cage in the basement. Unfortunately, it was not a very good ending for her. She wasn't found until months later. She had died of starvation. So it seemed like her spirit was trying to reach out to him in any way that it could, and her words took form in her Wordle game. I mean, they say that 3 a.m. is the hour where the dead and the living are closer together. So if you ever notice that your Wordle game is constantly giving you really mysterious and eerie words, it might mean something. It might. I feel like now everyone's gonna be afraid to play Wordle. I'm so sorry. But honestly, do you wanna know what's creepy? I did research for this video yesterday, and because I play the game at 12 a.m., so technically today, the word that I got, and by the way, this is a spoiler if you haven't played Wordle yet today, so just pause this video if you don't wanna hear the word. But today's word was scary. Are you kidding me? Isn't that a really weird coincidence? Because the second I got it, I literally got goosebumps. So maybe this story is kind of onto something, or maybe now my phone is glitched. Oh my god. There's a story about a stay-at-home mom that had 2 small children, and for the past 2 years, ever since they moved into their new house, she constantly sensed a presence around her. Now, strange things would happen mainly when her husband was away at work, and when he came home and she would try to tell him about all the creepy things that were happening to her, and he would say that stress was causing her to see and hear weird things. She would see shadows at the side of her eyes in different rooms, or sometimes something tall and dark would just quickly run past her before she had a chance to really see what it was. The stove would randomly turn on, the sinks would turn on when she wasn't there, and sometimes she would catch her 2 little children staring in the same direction with their eyes wide open as if they were looking at something terrifying that she couldn't see. And like I said, the most frustrating part about this all is that no one believed her, not even her husband. People just thought she was either making it up for attention, person, or that she was just so overwhelmed by looking after her family day after day that stress was messing with her head and she was seeing things that weren't there. Now, this is what is so bizarre about this whole story, and this is where Amazon comes in. The Amazon app basically proved to her husband that she wasn't lying, and I'll tell you how. One day she got a notification for a delivery, and when she opened the app, the delivery man had taken a photo of the packages on her porch like they usually would, but this time the photo was taken at a farther view of her house. So you could see her porch with the packages on it, but then you could see like the first half of her house, so the bottom floor. And she was just about to put her phone away when she noticed something strange. In one of the bottom floor windows of her house was a tall black figure, and it was just standing there behind the glass. And she felt this shiver go down her arm because she just knew that that was the thing that had been tormenting her for years. So when her husband got home, she immediately showed him, and she could tell it spooked him a little, but he just told her that it was probably her that was caught in the photograph. And because the delivery guy took the photo so quickly, it made her look like a blurry dark figure. He also said it could have just been a glitch on the app, so once again, not really believing her, but he did admit that it was creepy. At this point, she was so frustrated and began ordering a bunch of Amazon items in hopes that she would get more photos showing the exact same figure. And over the next couple weeks, all of the delivery photos were super close up of the packages, so it didn't really show any windows of her house so she can prove this thing was there. But finally, at the end of the month, the Amazon driver took the photo on the pathway in front of her house. So this time, both the bottom floor windows and the top floor windows were visible in this delivery photo. And you would not believe what she saw. In fact, she was so scared by this photo that she dropped her phone to the floor. In every single window of her house, there was some form of tall, warped, dark shadow just staring out of it. She could probably count about 6 of them appearing in the photo. And she knew that there was no way that her husband could explain that one away. And she also knew that they needed to get out of their house immediately. And that is how the story ends. I don't know if it's a real story or a creepypasta, but it's definitely creepy. So while she thought there was maybe one thing bothering her in her house, they had multiple spirits lingering there. And I don't know why they only showed up in Amazon photos, but that is pretty creepy. So that is something they thought was a glitch, but ended up being real. And by the way, if your husband doesn't believe you and blames everything you're experiencing on stress, get him out of here. Get him out of here. Okay, next we have something called the doppelganger glitch. I found this creepypasta talking about a legend where if you go onto the Amazon app at midnight and type your own name in the search bar, a listing will come up with a photo of your face and there'll be no price attached. There will just be a button that says add to cart. Apparently, within the coming week when you get your delivery, you'll wish you had never bought another version of yourself. So there was this guy who assumed this legend to just be completely fake. So one night when him and his friends were hanging out, they decided to try out this legend just as a joke. So when midnight hit, he pulled out his phone and opened the Amazon app, and everyone gathered around him to watch as he typed his own name in the search bar. At first, he just saw a bunch of items that started off with the first letter of his name, but when he scrolled down, his heart stopped when he saw a photo of himself. It was a photo that he had never put on any of his social media, and in fact, he never even remembered taking this photo. His friends around him were laughing because they thought that he just set this up as some sort of prank, but little did they know he was also extremely surprised. Well, because he didn't want to look afraid in front of all of his friends, he added himself to his cart, which is super weird to say. And it said that he would receive his delivery in 2 days. Those next 2 days were brutal for him. He was anxious and constantly waiting for the sound of his doorbell, wondering what would show up. Was it all just a joke to scare people? Would he actually be greeting himself in the doorway? On the second day, nighttime rolled around and he never got a knock on his door, so he finally felt super relieved. But just as he walked over to close the curtains in his bedroom before he went to sleep, he saw a figure standing in the darkness of his backyard, and at first he thought that maybe his dad was outside letting the dog out to pee, but when he squinted his eyes to get a closer look, staring staring back at him was his own face. And yeah, that's how that ended. Honestly, I wish there was more because I want to see what happens next. Is his own self doppelganger thing going to be nice to him? Is he trying to take over his life, which is what most of them do? Is he like evil? I want to know more. Back in 2021, thousands of people around the world were reporting this strange glitch happening to them on Spotify. It seemed as though when they were not using the app, the music would randomly start playing on its own. So they may have been working, in a meeting, at a restaurant, reading a book, just hanging out relaxing, and all of a sudden, music would start blaring from their phone. And while there isn't anything too scary about this, it's still a startling thing to happen, and it kind of catches you off guard. I did, however, read a very creepy experience from someone. It's about a man who was lying in bed because he was struggling to sleep at night. Hours were going by where he was just lying there staring at the ceiling. We've all had those nights where we just cannot sleep. Well, as he was lying in his bed, he began to hear the faint sound of music. At first, he thought that maybe it was coming from outside, like maybe his neighbors were having a party and he could hear the music in the distance. But as he listened closer, he realized that it was coming from his phone. And what was so weird is that when he opened his phone, saw that it was Spotify, he also saw that it was playing a song called Can't Sleep by Ghostwriter, which is such a creepy coincidence. I've never heard that song before, but the fact that the title is exactly what he's experiencing is so weird. I just could not imagine this happening to me, especially late at night when we're already sort of off guard and creeped out. So yeah, this was a real experience. So comment down below if you, back in 2021, had this glitch happen to you. Thankfully, I did not. Thankfully. Okay, so then we have the Spotify creepypasta, which may or may not be true, and this one is called Don't Use Shuffle. And when I heard this creepypasta, it just ruined me, because whenever I'm on Spotify, I'm always using Shuffle. That's like the first thing I do. There's a very creepy rumor about an entity that has been following people after they hear a certain song on Spotify. And here's the kicker, like I said, you can only stumble across this particular song if you're using the shuffle function on Spotify. I feel like I will no longer be doing this after making this video. They say that at first, it sounds as if a human is trying to mimic white noise, almost like a high-pitched whine. So when people hear this, they think it's a weird instrumental song or some sort of experimental music. But when you go and look at the title of what's playing, it's just a random string of letters that don't really make any sense. And it's the same with the name of the artist. So it's all sort of just gibberish. And whenever I've heard of like song glitches or any sort of creepypasta with music, a lot of the time it is just a random string of numbers and letters. So if you go and you click on the artist profile, it shows that they only have 3 songs available. If you play one of the other songs, apparently it's this high-pitched kind of manic laughter. It's incredibly loud. Even if your volume was low, it's suddenly so loud. And if you play the 3rd song, it's apparently this sort of low, whispery, sinister breathing. And usually after people find this artist playlist, they're really creeped out, but they just forget about it after. The problem is, it's impossible for them to forget about it for too long because the song comes back to haunt them, literally. Later on, while they're going about their daily life, whether it's walking home from school or making dinner or getting groceries or just sitting in their room, they will begin to hear that laughter. At first, they assume it's coming from their phone because they know they heard that weird music earlier. They think that maybe it turned on again by accident. But as soon as they pick up their phone, they'll realize that it's not coming from there, but instead it's coming directly behind them. People describe the creature they see next as a tall, spindly entity with a deep chasm of emptiness where its face should be, and most people run after seeing it, which makes sense. But here's the problem. The reason why this thing has a dark chasm instead of a face is because it can morph itself into people that you know and love. I read one story about a boy that was terrified and hiding in his room, and suddenly he heard his mother knocking at the door. He felt this sudden relief come over him, like he was finally safe, everything was gonna be okay. So he opened the door and he did see his mother standing there, but she had this unnaturally large smile on her face, and then it slowly changed back into that dark chasm of emptiness. So he knew right away it was the creature just tricking him. So be very careful next time your Spotify playlist is on shuffle, because apparently apparently once you hear this creature's song, you'll never be able to escape it. And that is how this creepypasta ends. So yeah, I do think it's more on the scary story side instead of the real side, but there have been a few times on my phone I have come across a very strange song on Spotify. Actually, a few months ago, I did a whole vlog video on it. I'll link it down below. Here's the thumbnail for it. But I do have like an in-person store for all of my merch and all of the products that I sell, and we have like a store playlist. And one day, this random creepy, very evil actually, song came on the playlist with no one putting it on there, no one pressing play, and it was so creepy. So I talk about that more on the vlog channel, so check that out if you have not yet. But yeah, I hope I don't come across this scary laughter or high-pitched noises, and I hope that you don't either.